New precedent? The headline in the Law Journal was succinct. Apex Chemical settles Millfield case for record $150 million. Below it, a smaller headline. Blackwood leaves Harrington and Ross. Sophia folded the newspaper and placed it on her desk, where boxes still waited to be unpacked. The Environmental Justice Project had moved to larger offices following the settlement, offices they could now afford thanks to the contingency fee. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. Proud of you. Mi hija. Your grandfather would be too. Sophia smiled, running her fingers over the framed photo of her grandfather that now sat on her desk. The victory had been bittersweet. Throughout the final months of the case, Julian had been conspicuously absent. His dramatic recusal had ultimately been the turning point. Apex's new counsel, faced with the documents Julian had identified, had quickly moved to settle. But Julian himself had disappeared. Rumors circulated. He'd been forced out of Harrington and Ross. He was facing ethics complaints. He'd left law altogether. Sophia had tried contacting him, but his firm email bounced back and his cell number was disconnected. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Got a minute? Her director, Martin, stood in the doorway. There's someone I'd like you to meet. Sophia followed him to the conference room, where a familiar figure stood looking out the window. Julian, she breathed. He turned, offering a tentative smile. Congratulations on the settlement. Martin glanced between them. I'll give you two a moment. When the door closed, Sophia stepped forward. You disappeared. I needed time to figure some things out. Julian's usual polish was gone, replaced by something more authentic. The ethics committee cleared me, by the way. Found I acted appropriately once I discovered the evidence. And Harrington and Ross. Let's just say we had irreconcilable differences about what constitutes zealous representation. His smile turned rueful. Turns out there's a fine line between advocate and accomplice. Sophia studied him. So what now? Another firm? Actually, that's why I'm here. He gestured to the chair and they both sat. I've been thinking about starting my own practice. Something focused on corporate accountability and compliance, helping companies do the right thing before they end up in court. Preventative justice, Sophia mused. It has potential. I think so too. Julian leaned forward. But I'd need a partner who understands the other side, someone who knows what justice looks like for the affected communities. Sophia's breath caught. Are you offering me a job? I'm proposing a partnership. His eyes held hers. Equal stakes, equal say. Your expertise in environmental and community justice, mine in corporate law. We could do something that matters. That's a big leap of faith, is it? Julian reached for her hand. Sophia, these past months showed me what I'd forgotten, why I became a lawyer in the first place. You reminded me that the law should serve justice, not just power. Sophia felt warmth spread through her chest. And this partnership, would it be strictly professional? Julian's smile deepened. I was hoping we might negotiate those terms separately, she laughed, intertwining her fingers with his. Counselor, that sounds suspiciously like a conflict of interest. Maybe. He moved closer. Or maybe it's exactly the precedent we need to set. Sophia studied his face, seeing now what had been hidden beneath the corporate lawyer facade: integrity, compassion, and the courage to change. I think I could be persuaded. His kiss was gentle yet certain, like a promise finally kept. When they parted, Sophia rested her forehead against his. So, she murmured, what do we call this new firm of ours? Julian smiled. How about Chen and Blackwood? Justice, balance, integrity. I like it, Sophia said, though I might suggest Blackwood and Chen rolls off the tongue better. Already negotiating, I see. His laughter vibrated against her palm where it rested on his chest. We'll put it to a vote. Outside the conference room window, the afternoon sun illuminated the city skyline, a vista of glass and steel, power and possibility. But inside, something more profound was taking shape. A partnership forged in opposition, tempered by principle, and now, finally, sealed with love. For Julian and Sophia, the most important case had never been about winning or losing. It had been about finding the courage to stand on the right side and discovering that sometimes the greatest victory was finding someone to stand there with you. Margin notes. The Meridian press deadline was approaching, and Maya had spent nearly every evening in Elijah's office reconstructing her novel. What began as awkward collaboration had evolved into something she hesitated to name. Tonight, rain battered the windows as they sat on opposite ends of the leather couch, manuscript pages between them. Elijah's glasses were perched on his nose as he read her latest chapter. "Your protagonist is finally confronting her fear," he observed, making a note in the margin. "But I'm not convinced she believes she deserves happiness yet." Maya took the page, their fingers brushing. "Maybe she doesn't know what happiness looks like anymore. Or perhaps she's afraid to reach for it," Elijah said, his eyes meeting hers over the rim of his glasses. The line between discussing her character and themselves had blurred weeks ago. Their late-night conversations had wandered from literary criticism to personal revelation, his privileged but emotionally distant upbringing, her immigrant parents' sacrifices, his loneliness at the top of his business empire, her struggle to balance practicality with dreams. "The community writing workshop is tomorrow," Maya said, changing the subject. "Are you still coming?" Elijah nodded. The workshop had been his idea, opening Inkwell Books after hours for aspiring writers from underserved communities. Maya would lead the session, with Elijah participating as just another writer. "I've been working on something," he admitted. "It's not very good." "I'll be the judge of that," she said, smiling. "The famous Elijah Winters nervous about sharing his writing?" "Fame is relative," he replied, "and entirely unhelpful when staring at a blank page." Thunder rumbled outside as the bookstore's ancient heating system sputtered and died. "Perfect timing," Maya shivered, pulling her cardigan tighter. Elijah retrieved a throw blanket from a cabinet. "Here," he said, settling it over her shoulders. "Better?" "Much," she murmured. When he sat back down, he was closer than before. "Maya," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something." Her heart quickened. "What is it?" "Meridian's editor-in-chief called today. They're interested in your manuscript, even in its unfinished state." Maya gasped. "Are you serious?" "Very. They'd like to meet with you next week." She launched herself at him, throwing her arms around his neck. "Thank you. I can't believe this is happening." When she pulled back, their faces were inches apart. Elijah's gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes, asking a silent question. Maya answered by closing the distance between them. The kiss began tentatively, then deepened as Elijah's arms encircled her waist. The manuscript pages scattered to the floor, forgotten. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Maya rested her forehead against his. "This is probably a terrible idea," she whispered. "Probably," he agreed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "But terrible ideas sometimes make the best stories." His hands traced patterns along her spine as he kissed her again, more urgently this time. Maya responded in kind, her fingers threading through his hair. The blanket slipped from her shoulders as she moved onto his lap. "Are you sure?" Elijah asked, his voice husky. Maya nodded, unbuttoning his shirt with trembling fingers. "I'm sure." Their bodies came together with the same intensity that had marked their first meeting, passionate, unexpected, transformative. The storm outside faded to background noise as they explored each other, finding connection in vulnerability. Later, wrapped in the blanket on the office couch, Maya traced the contours of Elijah's face. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," he said, kissing her forehead. "We write the next chapter together." But Maya couldn't silence the voice, in her head wondering if their story was too good to be true and what would happen when reality inevitably intruded on their carefully constructed narrative. The rewrite. Maya stared at her phone in disbelief, scrolling through the article for the third time. The headline glared back at her. "Inkwell Empire, Heir Elijah Winters and his latest project, romance or calculated PR move." Below was a photo of them leaving a restaurant, Elijah's hand protectively at the small of her back. The article detailed her position at his company, speculated about her forthcoming book deal, and implied she had slept her way into publishing success. "They're calling me your rags-to-riches accessory," Maya said when Elijah answered her call. "Maya, I'm so sorry. I had no idea they were following us." His voice was tight with anger. "My lawyer is already demanding a retraction. A retraction won't undo this." Her eyes burned with unshed tears. "Everyone at Meridian will see it. They'll think exactly what the article suggests, that I didn't earn this opportunity. The community writing workshop participants would see it too." The thought made her stomach clench. She'd worked so hard to build their trust, to convince them their voices mattered regardless of background or connections. Now she embodied the very privilege she'd claimed to stand against. "We know the truth," Elijah said. "Your work earned that book deal." Did it, though? The doubt that had been simmering beneath her happiness bubbled to the surface. Would Meridian have looked twice at her manuscript without Elijah's recommendation? "I need some space," she said finally. "I can't think clearly right now. Maya, please, don't shut me out. We can fix this together." "That's just it," she whispered. "I'm not sure we can." After hanging up, Maya called in sick to work and spent the day in her apartment, ignoring Elijah's increasingly concerned messages. By evening, another article had surfaced, claiming anonymous sources at Meridian Press confirmed Elijah had pressured them to sign her. When her phone rang again, it was Diane, not Elijah. "Have you seen the news?" Diane asked without preamble. "Unfortunately." "Maya, I've known Elijah for years. This isn't like him." Diane hesitated. "But there's something you should know. He's selling Inkwell books." "What? Why?" The news hit her like a physical blow. The board meeting just ended. He's stepping down as CEO, selling his majority stake. He wouldn't explain, just said it was time for a change. Maya's mind raced. Was this because of her? Because of the scandal? "There's more," Diane continued. "Before he left, he placed something in the front display window himself. I think you should come see it." Curiosity overcoming her desire to hide, Maya made her way to the bookstore. Rain soaked through her jacket as she approached the darkened storefront. In the display window, illuminated by a single spotlight, sat an open notebook. Maya recognized Elijah's handwriting immediately. It was the story he'd been working on for the writing workshop, the one he'd been too nervous to share. Maya pressed her palm against the cold glass as she read. The businessman had spent his life building walls of wealth and achievement, believing they would protect him from the emptiness he carried since childhood, until a woman with fire in her eyes and ink on her fingers showed him that true worth isn't measured in acquisitions, but in courage, the courage to create, to connect, to be vulnerable. She wrote her truth despite loss, despite struggle, never compromising her voice. In loving her, he found his own voice again. If the world couldn't see her talent shining independently of his shadow, then perhaps the solution wasn't to defend their connection, but to remove his shadow entirely. The story continued, laying bare Elijah's feelings, his insecurities, his admiration for her talent. It ended with a simple question. What story would you write if nothing stood in your way? A note was taped beneath. For Maya, I'm removing obstacles, not walking away. Find me when you're ready to write your own ending. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. He's at the pier, the one you mentioned in Chapter 12, where your protagonist finally decides what she truly wants. Final chapter. The rain had intensified by the time Maya reached the pier. Lightning illuminated the angry waves of Lake Michigan as she spotted a solitary figure at the railing. Elijah's shoulders were hunched against the storm, his usually impeccable appearance disheveled. "You're selling your company because of me?" she called over the wind. He turned, surprise and hope crossing his face. "Not because of you, for me." Maya approached until they stood face to face, rain streaming between them. "Explain." "I built Inkwell after my parents died because books saved me during that time." His voice was raw with emotion. "Somewhere along the way, I lost that purpose. I became exactly what you accused me of that first day, entitled disconnected. Until you reminded me why I started. So what now? You walk away from everything you've built?" "Not everything." Elijah reached for her hand. "I'm keeping one store, the original Inkwell, where we met." Understanding dawned on Maya. "You're starting over." "I'm remembering what matters." His fingers tightened around hers. The company is being sold to a trust that will preserve its mission. I've made arrangements for the writing workshop to continue with permanent funding. And Meridian Press? My book? I resigned from their board before recommending your manuscript. The editor made her decision based solely on your writing. His eyes held hers steadily. I would never undermine your talent that way. Maya absorbed his words, feeling the weight of doubt lifting from her chest. You gave up your empire. An empire is lonely, he said simply. I'd rather have a home. The declaration hung between them, sincere and vulnerable. Maya thought of the journey they'd taken. From anger to understanding, from collaboration to intimacy. She thought of her protagonist, who had spent the entire novel afraid to trust happiness when it appeared. I finished the manuscript, she said, last night, and how does it end? I was stuck for months on the ending. I wanted it to feel honest, not like a fairy tale. Maya stepped closer, eliminating the space between them. She doesn't need saving. She saves herself. But she also learns that choosing love isn't surrendering independence. It's expanding possibility. Elijah's hands framed her face, raindrops clinging to his eyelashes. And is that what you believe? I'm starting to, Maya whispered. The truth is, you didn't just read my story, Elijah. You helped me rewrite my own. Their lips met in a kiss that defied the storm around them. Maya felt certainty replace doubt, her body molding against his as though coming home. They were soaked through by the time they broke apart, but neither noticed the cold. I have a confession, Elijah said, smiling against her mouth. I've never actually worked a day in a bookstore. Maya laughed, the sound carrying across the water. Then you have a lot to learn. Good thing I'm an excellent trainer. I look forward to being thoroughly educated. His expression grew serious. Maya, I don't know what happens next. I just know I want to find out with you. Well, she said, taking his hand and leading him away from the pier. I've always found that the best stories start with a leap of faith. 6 months later, Maya stood in the center of a crowded bookstore, their bookstore, clutching a hardcover copy of her debut novel. The dedication page read, For E, who taught me that sometimes the most beautiful stories begin with a collision. Elijah appeared beside her, sliding an arm around her waist as customers browsed shelves they had stocked together. The writing workshop had expanded to 3 nights weekly with a waiting list. And upstairs in the office where they had first connected, a new manuscript was taking shape, this one written in both their hands. Happy? Elijah murmured against her temple. Maya looked around at the life they'd created. Not a fairy tale, but something better. A story they were writing together, page by page, day by day. Just getting to the good part, she replied, turning to kiss him as their next chapter beckoned.